Hi everyone, Vinny here from Russian River Brewing Company in Santa Rosa and Windsor, California. It's great to be a part of the BeerAdvocate Lager Festival. In your shipment, you should have a can of STS Pils from Russian River Brewing Company. That's a year-round offering from us, and that's the beer I'm going to be talking about today. Aside from talking about the beer itself, I'm going to talk a little bit about how we ferment the beer in the use of open-top fermenters, which is something that we installed at our Windsor facility back in 2018 when we opened this facility. The picture on the screen is of one of our 3 open-top rooms. And as you can see, the rooms are actually set a little bit lower, half a floor lower actually, so that the walkway above, folks can actually walk by and see it when they're on the guided tour. So this is a picture of the facility itself. Front of the facility, as well as on the right picture, the back of the brewery and the hospitality area. That's of our beer garden. And then this is inside the actual production area. On the left is our brew house. Then on the bottom picture is the closed top cellar, and then the right, our barrel room. Now, one of my favorite parts, if not my favorite part of our new facility here, is our open-top fermenters. And we have 6 of them total. There's 2 in each room, so we have 3 rooms. So we've got 2 double batch, 2 single batch, and then 2 more double batch in room number 3. And our brew length is 75 barrels here on our brew house. So that means these open-top fermenters are either 75 or 150 barrel size. And the unique things about open-top fermenters is that they're as wide as they are tall. So we say that we talk in ratio. So that's a 1-to-1 ratio. Again, so it's as wide as it is tall. And that's much different than your traditional taller, skinnier tanks that you traditionally see in a brewery. I love open-top fermenters for a lot of reasons, obviously from a flavor standpoint, yeast health, but I love the tradition of it. You know, in the old days, all beer was made in open-top fermenters. You know, although closed-top fermenters have been around for a while, you know, in the big picture, they're a relatively new part of brewing and fermentation. And so I just love that tradition that this is how it used to be done. It's a little more work. It you know, takes an extra transfer of beer for us, but I just absolutely love the flavor profile. Now, historically speaking, these are some pictures that I thought I'd throw in just to give you an idea of what some open tops used to look like. You know, in the old days, they could be wood. Eventually, they moved to copper, and then, you know, stainless steel. But pretty unique and just a vast variety of different types of vessels. Now, you may be questioning why I picture Miller in a presentation. I was lucky enough on one of our fact-finding trips to build our Windsor facility. Natalie and I took a trip to the Midwest and went to Bell's and Glarus and a couple other you know, craft breweries, and we had some friends working at Miller at the time, and so we took a tour. And to our surprise, they took us up to the top floor, the top 2 floors of the big iconic tower in the Miller facility. And that room was full of open-top fermenters that don't get used anymore. So, you know, in its day, Miller was fermenting a good portion of their beers in open-top fermenters. And so that's a picture on the right of the open tops in use in that room that I was talking about. Now, for me, personally, I first made use of an open-top fermenter at my brewery in Blind Pig in 1995. Now, granted, it wasn't a super sanitary setup. All it was an old dairy tank that you see on the screen there, and I would fill it with wort. It didn't even have refrigeration on it, and I fermented. Typically, I fermented our porter in it because the porter could handle a little bit warmer of a fermentation. I wouldn't make these fermentations during the summer. And I just took a roll of aluminum foil and ran it over the top to protect it. But I thought it was worth noting to include this in the slide deck here. Interestingly, all of our fermenters at Blind Pig were plastic. It's all I could afford. Seems a little far-fetched, but it actually worked really well. We would just have a plastic, clear piece of plastic on the top that would just sit loosely, so CO2 could exhaust. So it certainly wasn't a sealable closed tank, and it certainly couldn't hold pressure. Every once in a while, they would ferment out and over, and that picture on the right was that just about to happen with the high poison just about to come out of the fermenter. So pretty interesting stuff. So I've been around this type of fermentation for a while, but it wasn't until 2014 when Natalie and I took a trip to Germany, and this was one of our early fact-finding trips to build our new brewery. And we were down in southern Bavaria, and I'd scheduled a visit to this brewery, Schönraum, in the town of Schönraumer, right on the Austrian border. And there, a brewer, an American brewer who has been there for a couple decades plus now, Eric Toff, makes some of my favorite German beer at the brewery Schönraum. And all the beers go through an open top fermentation. And it just really shows the dedication there. But man, I tell you, when I left that brewery, I knew for sure that we were going to have at least 1 or 2 open top fermenters in our Windsor facility. And in the end, we installed 6. Now, these ones are a little bit different shape. This is a unique design in that there is sort of a dome on the top of the tank. And why this is that it gives them the ability to have a CIP spray ball, a cleaning ball inside the vessel, so they can just put a cover on the side, and then that allows them to make a pretty easy cleaning of these tanks. But nonetheless, it's still a proper open top fermentation. And boy, the flavors of these beers just were really inspiring to me. And that was really my aha moment to say, like, yeah, we're going to do open top fermenting at the Windsor facility. Now, it should be noted that this is what we're talking about here with open top fermenters is for clean beer, not for sour, funky, spontaneous beer. So the pictures on the screen are of our cool ship here at our Windsor facility. But again, that's not what we're talking about. When we're talking about open top fermenters, we're talking about making clean beers that don't have any Brettanomyces or bacteria in them. Kind of a fun video here. This is one of the open tops going in. So Natalie was filming from the bottom. That's me actually on the upper left, guiding the tank in with our rigging company that had their crane attached to the tank, and there it's set in. So we did this for all the vessels, and so this room has holes in the floor. So when you're in the cellar of the open top room, all 6 tanks are accessible to our brewers, but above they're split into 3 rooms. So the reason we did that was so that we can ferment with different yeasts in the open tops at any given time. So technically we could have a Belgian strain, a conventional like our California ale yeast, and our lager strain all going at the same time in open tops, all while not cross-contaminating each other with a different yeast. Now, at any brewery, safety should be top of mind, should always be the #1 priority. In these rooms, in these open top fermenter rooms, it really becomes even more critical, because if you think about all the CO2 that's being exhausted off these vessels, it can be quite a bit. So the way these rooms are set up is the HVAC system is 100% outside air. And so it passes through the HVAC system to cool or heat it to whatever temperature, and then it exits. So it never gets reused. And then that air goes through, first it goes through a HEPA filter so that it's super pure. And then it goes through a UV lamp, and then it enters the room. So that's how we keep the rooms clean. But as I mentioned, safety is a big concern. And so not only do we want to keep having fresh air being pumped into the room, but we want to be able to detect CO2 if for some reason the HVAC system goes down. And so you'll see there, the picture on the left, we keep the doors locked all the time. There's a little sticker on the door that says check CO2 alarm before entering. There's a chain there just to remind the brewers when they're entering that, hey, you're entering what could potentially be a dangerous situation. So when they enter the room, the first thing they do is they look to the left, and if they see a green light, then they know everything's good. If that light is red, there would also be an audible alarm going off telling the brewers that there's too much CO2 in the room and do not enter. Now that HVAC system that I mentioned, it's on all the time. Even when the tanks are empty, we're bringing in fresh air. Now, if the CO2 detector detected a high level of CO2, we went into an alarm state, then that HVAC system would kick up to a higher speed, and it can clear all the air out of the room in less than 5 minutes. So it's a pretty technical setup, and super, super important to make sure we keep our team safe. Now, cleaning in a brewery, sanitation, cleaning is also paramount and such an important part of brewing. And so these tanks, because they have a open top to them, in the past, you would have to just scrub them by hand. But now the way that these round tanks are designed is actually a ring that goes around the lip of the top, and then on this ring of tubing, there's holes all the way through, punctured all the way around it. You can see on the video how it just showers down. So our brewer below has a pump connected, and then it connects to a hard pipe stainless steel that comes up and over to the top and connects to that ring, and then we can just recirculate cleaning solution through this. Now, interestingly, we can't use our normal cleaning solutions because those require hot water. And in this situation, we can't have hot water in these rooms because all those the cleaning agents would volatilize off and would be pretty tough to enter the room. So we do everything with cold water in the cleaning cycle. So that kind of covers a lot of the kind of what leads up to what will be the finish of my presentation today. And now I want to talk about the actual tank geometry, what flavor profiles we get, and just some of the other things that make open top fermenters really cool. So this is a video of an open top fermentation, a few videos spliced together of STS Pils starting a fermentation. Now, I mentioned earlier that open top fermenters have a tank geometry of 1:1, meaning they're as wide as they are tall. That's much different than a conventional tank that can be more like a 1:3 ratio. And so in that setup, the yeast is going to be much happier. It's going to ferment better. It's going to have better viability, better cell counts. First, because there's no lid on the tank. There's two things yeast doesn't like. It doesn't like pressure, and yeast doesn't like alcohol. Well, it's in a fermentation. It's making beer, so it's going to make alcohol. But that's something that just comes with the territory. But fermenting without the lid really takes all the static pressure off the yeast, and it just makes it puts it in a healthier situation, a healthier fermentation environment. And you can see it kind of now turning into the krausen, and the fermentation is now really getting going and quite vigorous. From a flavor standpoint, you're going to create a lot nicer and cleaner ester profile in the beer. And with lagers such as STS, it just makes for a much cleaner tasting beer overall. Now, it doesn't mean that making beer like STS in a closed top fermenter isn't going to be good. It certainly will be. To me, the difference between open top fermentation and a closed top fermenter are really just like nuances of flavors, the difference between great and excellent. And so, those are some of the reasons why we only ferment our lagers in open top fermenters. From a yeast collection standpoint, if you look on the picture on the right, there's an opening on the side of the vessel. And so that allows the yeast to take the path of least resistance and go out that door. And then there's a slide connecting to that outlet that goes down to a yeast collector. That yeast collector is set in the floor that the slide is connected to. So the yeast just billows up, goes out the side of the tank into the yeast collector, and then from the cellar below, our brewers can collect the yeast from that vessel, or they can skim the yeast from the top of the tank. Now, STS is definitely more on the hoppier side as a Pilsner goes. Now, this is how a lot of Pilsners were produced in yesteryear. Maybe not necessarily with the dry hop component that we add to STS, but certainly, you know, STS has a firm bitterness to it. It's it's something that I really like about STS. Compared to most Pilsners, STS is a bit more bitter, and it comes in at 45 BUs. There's a dry hop component to it. You know, when I made this initially, I really wanted it to be traditional, yet still carry kind of a Russian River personality and signature to it. So we do just a small dry hop at about a quarter pound per barrel, but we dry hop cold. And so because of that, we end up with just a soft and subtle aromatic compound to the beer. Water is a big part of any lager or any traditional lager. And so in doing that, we planned a separate hot water tank because we are mostly an ale producer. We have a second hot water brewing tank so that we can use that to make the water blend, because the water is much different. You want really water that has almost no mineral content in it for our STS Pils and any other lagers we make compared to our ales. And that just gives us one more tool in our toolkit to be able to easily make these beers and give us the best opportunity to have the best water profile. So that's the end of my presentation. I look forward to Friday, August 20th, and having the virtual conversation, and hopefully you bring some good questions. Cheers, and thank you for watching.